Hello, everybody. It's me, Kirsten, and this is the It's Giving Mystical podcast. And this is your podcast for the week ahead, the week of March 14th. Okay, Ides of March. I see you. I see you. Sorry. I don't know. Sometimes you have to laugh. You have to laugh at just the intensity of it all. And that's a really good reminder just to put that out there and hold this in your body for the rest of the month at the very least, probably through these retrogrades, probably through the next full moon. You want to really notice the very basic and simple energetics of where you are leaning in your life and where you have permission to lean back. And it's not about judging it as right or wrong. It's not about saying I should or I shouldn't. It's about just recognizing there are things, events, people, relationships, situations, environments that cause me to lean in. And there are the same things that allow me to lean back. We really are trying to unwind individually and systemically and collectively this basic human wound of having to do more to be worthy, of having to perform and achieve and collect things to somehow signify or reach a level with which we can say, now I'm worthy, now I'm powerful, now I'm okay, now I'm safe. And you really want to can you feel that in your body? Like this really beautiful, it comes from a really, again, beautiful, innocent place. I want to be loved. I want to be seen. I want to be safe. I want to be included. I don't want to be cast out. And so I'm going to perform. I'm going to do what needs to get done to be considered worthy, to be considered lovable, to be considered worthy of protection, worthy of praise, whatever your particular sauce or flavor of that. We all have that in us. And so much of, I know I'm turning into a little bit of a, I don't know, like a Marxist. I'm not even sure. Talk about capitalist structure a lot. Tarot and capitalist discourse. This is quite a podcast. But I mean it because it's important. That's part of what's breaking down is this sense of I am only worth what I produce. I am only worth what I collect resource-wise, right? So much of the pain that we have in our own bodies, the stress we have in our own bodies, so much of the stress we place on this earth is this sense of getting more, producing more, like having more. And that comes with this idea of performance, of doing, of being considered efficient enough, hardworking enough, successful enough. Then yes, and yes to that experience, to that way of being, because it has been our mode of operation. It's been what we've worked with. It's been what we knew. And now we're starting to question that, and that's starting to break down in some pretty obvious ways. And the question becomes, how much can we really trust and practice this sense of I'm enough just as I am? I'm enough without having to perform. I'm worthy just because I'm here. And that can get us into the spiritual talk of, and the biological talk, right? The sperm and the egg. How lucky, how miraculous for that sperm and that egg to come together to create you. From a spiritual, like universal, cosmic standpoint, how miraculous that you got to be here on earth, that you got to experience this. And all the literature says, all the spiritual literature says, earth is a tough school. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the unevolved. So much of that is because we are encountering our material limitations. And so this desire to get more, I hear you, I hear me, I know the truth of it. And the contradiction, the shift, the invitation is to sink more deeply into, I'm okay just as I am. And there are moments where we're not. There's moments where we are really threatened, where we really do have to fight for our survival. And people are experiencing that right now. People have always been experiencing that across time and space. There's never been a time on this earth, a time in this universe where there haven't been people who are fighting for their lives. And that's very real. And that's a different kind of presence that requires. But for most of us, and we've said this before, if my life isn't threatened in this moment, then the threats I feel are ego threats most of the time. And so I really want to invite you to just notice, like, all of that's complicated and we can spin off in lots of different discussions and lots of different directions about why? And what do you mean? And like the individual psychology of it and the collective cultural psychology of it. But as a practice, notice where you need to lean in, where the movement, the habit, the invitation is to lean in more, harder, work. And places where the invitation is to sink back, relax, exhale, be enough. And it's not, again, about judging whether that's right or wrong. It's just noticing it and noticing what that feels like in your body and what is the desire that comes up in that conversation and which of those allows you to pause and reflect and check in with yourself and choose from a place of agency and power. Most often, it's the places where we lean in that we're invited to, wait a second, what's pushing me forward? Where is the momentum here? It comes back to this conversation around momentum. It's so much in me, with me in my field. And I imagine partially that's because I'm trying to channel it to a larger group. It's not just here for me. As much as I love the universe and the universe loves me, part of what I'm here to do is help put language around things that we feel, right? It's part of what I'm here to work with and offer as service and as a gift. And so this question of momentum, one of the things that came up, it's been coming up a lot, but it came up in the full moon circle, is this recognition of we are made of parts, right? We are not, sometimes we can be really integrated, really authentic, really fully absorbed. We've like done all the shadow work, done all the integration. We've stepped away from our story. We're deeply present, deeply in the moment by moment. But for most of us, there's aspects of our being that are shattered or scattered. So there's parts of us that are in shadow. There's parts of us that are trying to get a need met that may or may not be conscious. And this idea that they have a momentum to them. And one of the reasons that you do self-actualization work, that you do any kind of shadow work, that you want to investigate these things, investigate your story, investigate the tale you're telling, the myth you're creating, actively creating with the stories you tell, with the words you use, with the places you go, with the desires you have, is that we want to get ourselves in line. We want to bring ourselves in line and have all of our parts moving in the same direction, like creating from the same ground. And one of the things that happens is at some point in our history, whether it's through our ancestors, through past lives, through our own experiences, there's a part of us that is trying to get a need met, usually a survival need, something pretty core, pretty basic, like I said, to be seen, to be accepted, to be safe, to be loved, to be wanted, to be seen. And that part has a lot of energy to it. So consciously, we can be like, this is where I'm headed. But that part is like an engine running in the other direction. And so part of this noticing where your engines are revved is a noticing what's driving the train, what has its foot on the accelerator, and is it serving you? Is it where you really want to go? Does it feel good? We also talked about in full moon circle, like the sixth house, the house that rules Virgo, the idea of the everyday. And Maddie, my cousin, who I adore and is a brilliant astrologer, we were talking the other day, and she said, people always think because I have a stellium in my sixth house, a Scorpio stellium in my sixth house. Tell me what that means. But she says that the sixth house is the unsexy house in the zodiac, right? Because it's about your habits, your routine, the details, your everyday, your body, like how you exercise, that kind, how organized you are. And it sounds boring and unsexy, but the truth is that's where most of our life is created, right? We have beautiful moments, we have tragic moments in our life, but the majority of our time here is very like a fundamental routine. And we talk about working on your habits not as a way to add more pressure and tell you what you're doing wrong, because I also pray that we begin to unwind that, especially when it comes to health, creativity, spirituality. Like anyone telling you, just keep your ears open. Anyone telling you there's a right or wrong way to do that is lying. It's serving some other God. The truth is that this is about our curiosity, about our exploration, about what feels good to us, what works for us. And so the sixth house is bringing your attention, the Virgo full moon is going to bring your attention to your daily movements, and then what's contributing to your peace or your lack of peace in that space, in that passage of time. What about your day feels like the pressure to lean in, and what about your day allows you to relax and lean back? And we're just noticing that. And the beauty of noticing is that if we continue to bring our awareness and our attention to that action, that lean in, that lean back, we're going to decide what feels good and right. We're going to decide what feels authentic. We're going to decide what feels like a movement that I'm choosing, that I'm clear about, that I'm devoted and dedicated to, and what feels like a movement that's running on autopilot. Again, that like someone's pushing on the gas that we're not really even sure who's driving the ship. I have just mixed metaphors with 18 different vehicles, so choose your vehicle. But we see I would offer that invitation. This moment is a moment where we are gathering ourselves and watching things take new shapes, fall apart, come back together. Like the game board is still in flux, and for ourselves personally and collectively. And so, yes, there's moments where you know what your step is, where, if you're called to action and it's clear and it feels passionate and right and aligned, then yes. And if we're moving just to move, if we're leaning in just because we're scared, then we want to just notice that. And if we're leaning back in a way that feels good and right and grounded, we want to notice that. And if we're leaning back as a way to avoid, we want to notice that too. So again, none of it's good, none of it's bad, but it is just a rich place to bring your energy. When so much outside of us is in motion and unsettled, we can bring ourselves back to what is our work? How do we stay in alignment? How do we stay in integrity? How do we stay grounded and present? And how do we build a life, a daily life, brick by brick, that speaks to the world we want to create, the world we want to live in, that's setting the trajectory, setting the course for the world that we dream of? Because at the end of the day, when you feel satisfied with your days, it will lead you someplace wonderful. I know that. But there is a sense of, even if it doesn't, like my day was a day that I'm proud of. My movements were movements that worked for me, that satisfied me, that encouraged more peace and love and strength and beauty in the world. So I say all of that to you before I even talk about the card, because I think it's important. This is a very disorienting time. So we want to know where to bring our energy when we feel scattered. And a really brilliant place is just to come back to your body, come back to the gift that this body is, the Virgo, the body, the materiality, the earth energy, coming back to it and saying, okay, where is this body at peace, and where is this body in trauma response or in reactivity? And what's my work? Where's my work in that? And how do I want to feel at the end of the day? My teacher Kendra used to always say, how do you want to feel? How do you want to be in your day? How do you want to be in your life? That's where the work is. Creating a life that feels in alignment with your values and with the world you're hoping to create. So speaking of all of that, they would say to you that the other last thing I'll say about this full moon, that is, I think it's tonight or tomorrow. I think Mercury goes retrograde. The full moon's tonight, and then Mercury goes retrograde on Saturday. The energy that I felt in full moon circle was this beautiful blood red moon is like the moon in its warrior apparel. So the moon is coming here to fight for your right to be more. And it's coming in to draw away from you something that no longer serves you. And the meditation that I offered, and I'll offer you just as an idea here, is to sit in meditation and sit with the energy of this beautiful blood red moon and ask the warrior moon to take from you what no longer works and feel what it presents to you. Maybe it will be just a really simple somatic experience. Maybe you'll actually see the thing, and whatever it is, be a yes to it. And then the second half of this is to turn to the earth and ask the earth, what is springing up? What is coming into form as I release this other thing? It's a beautiful meditation, and I hope it offers you some co-resonance with the energies that are happening versus a sense of fear or scatteredness or insecurity. People talk about the eclipse season, and it can feel, and Maddie and I were also saying, like, there's chaos magic here, which is both exciting and terrifying. So how do you stay empowered? How do you stay present? And my invitation to you would be to speak to the moon and speak to the earth and allow them to dialogue with you about what this moment is asking of you specifically. The card I pulled for us this week is the Seven of Pentacles. This is the card of waiting. It's the card of patience. It's the card of gestation. So the Seven of Pentacles says there's something new taking shape in the material world, and it hasn't arrived yet. And the classic examples are a woman who's pregnant, right? You don't really see how much is happening, and yet a whole world, a whole new being, a whole being is being created here. And that takes energies that you can't even fathom. The other thing that came up in the full moon, like the moon is pulling on the tides, right? It's moving the ocean on a daily basis. It's also moving the earth in unseen ways, and it's moving us in unseen ways. There are forces, powerful forces in the world that we cannot touch or hold or grasp. We might witness them, we might see the impact they have, but we can't know everything. Think about the mycelium network, right? The fact that they didn't know that the trees spoke to themselves, spoke to each other through the roots. They didn't know that mushrooms were like the superhighway of information. And so for hundreds of years, thousands of years, that was happening, maybe hundreds, because probably indigenous people knew that. But in our like scientific modern sensibilities, we didn't know. That was a conversation that was happening over and over again. The conversation of the microbiome, the conversation of viruses and bacteria, the conversations of the tides, the moon, the universe, the solar system, the conversation of like unresolved or processing stories between people, between communities, between countries. All of this is happening. And so when we have the sense of, I know, I would challenge that. I would challenge that to offer you the invitation to meditate on, I don't know. And I don't know can be a humiliating thing to say in our world, right? We can be taught that what's wrong with you that you don't know? Then go do your homework, do your research, figure it out, have an opinion. And I think that's so faulty. And it's taken me a long time to unwind that in my own system, but now I know. Now I know that I don't know. And so there's a sense of I don't know. And that can be both, yeah, like humiliating, terrifying, shame inducing, but it can also be, wow, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what might be taking shape. I don't even know what will be born tomorrow. I don't even know what this day will bring, this week will bring, this year will bring. So there's a lot of energy that feels a little bit like scared right now, right? There's a lot of energy that feels like, I don't know, and so it must be bad. And AI is another perfect example of this. And what would it do for our world if all of that energy around, I don't know, followed the Gay Hendricks prompt of take a deep breath and turn that fear into wonder, turn that fear into excitement. I don't even know what might happen. There's something very beautiful and very wonder-filled to approach the world with the sense of, I don't know. It helps us drop our story. It helps us drop our need to control. And it helps us embrace a sense of the world is a beautiful place. And my belief in that matters. Like my embodied grounding into that knowing that no matter what happens, we talk about the 9 of Wands, right? Being this wounded warrior and how the wounded warrior can take on the form of waiting for the next shoe to drop, or the wounded warrior can take on the form of, oh, I know myself. And I know the world is an exciting place. And I also know that I'll be ready to handle whatever comes my way. So the Seven of Pentacles is really saying, don't judge what's happening by the form it's taking right now. So with the pregnant woman, if you didn't know, you probably wouldn't know that a baby's coming. Or the seeds. Right now I just planted all the winter crops in my garden. I am obsessed with my garden. Side note, I'm going to start a gardening podcast where I just talk about how much joy my garden brings me. Does that mean I'm getting old? The birds in the garden and the moon? Like what? Put me in the woods forever. But I just planted all the seeds. I have these beautiful beds, like I just did a lot of work on my garden. So I have these beautiful raised beds. And I just put down maybe 50 seeds last night. And in a few short weeks, I'm going to have arugula and spinach and radishes and dahlias, gladiolas, marigolds. Like that whole blank space is going to be a riot of life and color and sustenance and resources and deliciousness. You wouldn't know that if you didn't know how the world worked, right? If you really were like, I don't know what might happen, you couldn't imagine that. Take a look at my black garden beds today and then look at them in 6 weeks, in 2 months, and you'd be like, I didn't know that was possible. So the same is true for you and the same is true for the world. Like the world might really surprise you at the color and the beauty and the art and the newness, the awe, the wonder that are possible. The melon ripening on the vine is another classic Seven of Pentacles symbol. You don't want to rush it. So you don't want to pick the melon because you're impatient and then crack it open and then there's nothing sweet at all. Versus if you're patient and you sit with it and you can, again, lean back, relax, be with what is. Stay with yourself while the world is shifting. Stay with yourself while you're shifting. And then the cantaloupe comes and it's cantaloupe, dude. It's amazing. So there's a sense of don't pick it too early, the sense of ripeness, the sense of patience, the sense of things are in transition, are in becoming, are in manifestation is very important during Seven of Pentacles week. And again, Pentacles, earth energy. 7, the number of mystery, the number of the sacred, the number of I don't know. Maybe that's why I was saying that before. Like 7 is the number of I don't know. 7 of numbers I actually can't fathom. When it comes to manifestation, when it comes to what's possible in the world, we think that having control is the thing, right? I can control it if I can point my ship in that direction and stay the course no matter what. Yes, that's beautiful. And there's also something about what might the universe created if you took the fetters off. If you took your hands off the wheel, where might you go? Like what might come to life? This is truly cliche, silly Kirsten, like very innocent Kirsten, but it's true. This is a beautiful world. Humans are terrible in some ways. Like we do terrible things to each other. But humans are also glorious and magical and intelligent and brilliant. And same with the world. The world can break our hearts, but it can also bring us to our knees with, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that my heart can feel so big, that so much can be possible? So I want to just offer that all to you. 7 of Pentacles says, don't rush into a decision. Don't push things along. Let things ripen. I had lunch with a girlfriend yesterday and I was like complaining about this thing. And she's like, but you don't have to decide. And I was like, you are right, girl. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to respond to the urgency being put on me. I'm not ready to decide. That's okay. And I don't have to force it before I'm ready. So the 7 of Pentacles is that. And I would really encourage you to be conscious of your boundaries, be conscious of what I just said. If someone's coming at you because they're uncomfortable, because they need a reaction, notice where that's you and where that's them. Get really clear about that boundary line. Yeah, 7 of Pentacles is like, just be patient. Things are ripening, things are becoming, and you can't, based on the state of how things are today, you can't determine where they're going. So back to the garden analogy. If I'm holding an arugula seed in my hand, you're not going to know that in 2 months' time, with some love and some light and some sunshine and some rain and some good, rich soil, I'm going to have enough to feed a family. Like I'm going to be able to feed my family with that tiny dot in my hand. That's the level of awe. If you didn't know that was possible and I showed you that, you'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? Give things time to become what they're here to become. You too, baby. Give yourself time to become what you are here to become. With healing, with spirituality, with all this stuff, it can be like, I did the shadow work. I did the healing. I went to the workshop. What now? Now you wait. Now you integrate. Now you watch the world change shape around you because it's reflecting who you are. Like you are the maker, you are the myth maker, you are the creator, and we all are. And so what are we feeding? What are we putting into the ground? What seeds are we laying during this time? And what do we hope those seeds become? And where are we willing to lean back and say, hey, wow, I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know that flower was going to be a pink one. I'm excited. So there's why I give you all that for the week ahead. The Ides of March and Mercury going retrograde and Venus in retrograde. And I think at the end of the month, Neptune goes into Aries from Pisces. That's like a 14-year cycle. That's a huge shift. And we have the shifting of the nodes. So we're going into the Pisces-Virgo nodal axis versus the Aries-Libra nodal axis. So there's a lot going on. And you don't know how that soup's going to come together, right? We have ideas, we take history, we look for patterns, but we are meaning makers. And sometimes the fault in that is that we don't see what we don't see. We don't know what we don't know. And so take that with you. Play with this idea of I don't know, and play with this idea of leaning in, leaning back. I think it will serve us all. All right, March. In the lion, out like a lamb. Sending you all love and love and some time in your garden. I hope that you too have a place where you can put your hands in the dirt and just dream about what might be possible.